Now let's talk about industry concentrations. So industry concentrations are important for a lot of reasons. One, it can indicate a specialization in your regional economy. It can also help identify export-oriented or basic industries. And what I mean by that is industries that are really there but are exporting their goods or services outside your region and that therefore bringing new dollars into your region. So that's what economic development is in many ways, looking to expand those export-oriented industries. Sometimes they're hard to define though. Manufacturing is traditionally an export-oriented industry just by definition. So is agriculture by and large. There's obviously some types of agriculture that's just for the local market, but by and large, it's considered an export-oriented industry. But what about professional technical services? That's your accountants, your lawyers, and so forth. Well, a lot of times they can be export-oriented if there's a lot of those industries in that area, more so than you would expect, then you can assume that some of that is probably export-oriented. It can also, though, identify vulnerabilities in the region. So especially as you get down to smaller areas, you may see a very high concentration in one industry. It may be one company. And so that's great in terms of while that company is there generating jobs and obviously having a concentration, but if that one company were to move, you would quickly be in a very vulnerable situation as a regional economy. So we understand about concentrations through location quotients. They tell you about these concentrations by measuring the relative concentration of an industry in a given place. And we usually compare employment, and we're usually looking at that compared to the US average. There's different ways to do LQs. Occupational location quotients are available. You can do LQs from different regions, but I'm going to show you how to do the US one, just so you know the math behind it here. The location quotient is included, and we'll talk about what that number means in another slide. So location quotient calculation is really a very simple calculation. It's a calculation of the region's concentration versus the US. So this is a manufacturing example. You have industry employment over total employment in the region over national industry employment and national total. So, for example, in this region, let's say we had 20 manufacturing jobs out of 100 jobs. In the nation, let's assume we had 100,000 manufacturing jobs out of a total of 1 million jobs. These are obviously just made up numbers, but it goes to show the actual math here. So in the region, 20% of the jobs are in manufacturing. In the nation, 10% of the jobs are in manufacturing. So simply dividing that 20 by 10 gets you 2, location quotient of 2. And that means that region is 2 times as concentrated in manufacturing employment as the US average. So that's just a quick thing on the map. Location quotient tips. So here's some general rules of thumb. Location quotients of 1.2 and higher are generally indicators of some degree of specialization. LQs 0.8 to 1.2 are really kind of generally matching the US trend. So if something's 0.9 or 1.1, we're really kind of saying, yeah, it's pretty close to the national average. If it's less than 0.8, it may indicate that there could be a deficiency in that region. But it depends on the region size and industries. So at very small regions, at a county level or even 2 or 3 or 4 counties, you may find very high LQs. And again, it could be just one company that's employing a lot of people in that. So you want to look at that with employment as well and payrolling locations. Not all industries are going to be found in all places either. So you may be in a place where mining is just not going to be there, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're deficient in it. It's just that it's not going to be there. Headquarters companies are a lot of times focused in cities. Bigger cities, the more of those. And so a lot of times you're not going to find a lot of those in the area. So if you look at the table to the right, this is one of the regions in Missouri. We see some high LQs really in transportation and warehousing, in manufacturing, and those are really the highest ones. We see it starting to get a little higher in retail trade and accommodations and food services. So just so you know, if you see concentrations in accommodations and food services, entertainment, and retail, that's usually an indicator that tourism is the draw. So it's not that those industries in of themselves are the draw, is that there's a tourism aspect to it. Arts and recreation are a lot of times there's a draw, but accommodations and food services and more retail go with that. And so you would see this, for example, in the Branson area, you would see a higher LQ than that. And then you can see things that it's not so big in, especially in mining, like that example. We don't always have mining everywhere. And educational services, in this case, it's going to be your private education services and not your local schools. So location quotients give you in an instant a really quick way to look at the industries and which ones are concentrated, and to tell you a little bit about how your area is different perhaps than the US. And so I think it's a helpful measure to have in there, and it's included in those tables as well. So please take a look at the tables and understand a little bit of how that analysis happens, and then you can use some of that information in presentations, hopefully, to help your stakeholders.